C9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Chris is shit sick.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. As we inch closer and closer to the upcoming NFL season teeing off, a lot of lies end up being debunked, and the truth eventually comes out. And the biggest facade of this offseason, to me, was the quote-quote Minnesota Vikings quarterback battle. Apparently, Kevin O'Connell had us all convinced that there was a legitimate battle for QB1 between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy, yet only 1 week and a half into training camp, Kevin O'Connell has gone ahead, ended the quarterback battle, and has named Kyler Murray the starting quarterback for week 1. If this was the legitimate quarterback battle that Kevin O'Connell was trying to claim that it was, it shouldn't have been this easy to name Kyler the starter. And we'll dive into why Kevin O'Connell lied about the Vikings quarterback battle and what his purpose for that was, along with revealing two of the NFL's biggest sleeper teams heading into this season. The Chiefs, I've heard some very good intel coming out of training camp surrounding them finally getting their fastball back. Lamar Jackson is being rebooted by the Baltimore Ravens for MV3, and why I believe the Chargers will have the NFL's most improved offense this season. If you live, eat, breathe, sleep, and die football, congratulations. You have arrived at the right place. We're talking all things football, NFL, college football, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you're a diehard football fan, you can't go a single day without getting your football fix in. Make sure that you are subscribed. You got post notifications turned on. If you think that you do, go ahead and double check, because you might not. And also share this episode of the podcast with your friends, family members, acquaintances. The season is just around the corner. Make sure if you know some other fellow football fanatics that you get them to the place that every football fanatic needs to be, JT Sports. Without further ado, man, let's dive into it. Kevin O'Connell spent all this offseason trying to convince us that the Minnesota Vikings were having a legitimate quarterback battle between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. And yet, it only took him a week and a half in the training camp to announce Kyler Murray as the starting quarterback entering week 1. If this battle was as legit as what Kevin O'Connell was trying to claim that it was, why did it take Kyler a short amount of time to separate himself from J.J. McCarthy? That's because Kevin O'Connell already knew that J.J. McCarthy was not going to be the Vikings starting quarterback this year. His whole purpose of lying about this quarterback battle between J.J. and Kyler was that he was buying time for the Minnesota Vikings entire organization to accept the reality, which was that J.J. McCarthy was a wasted pick, and there was nothing that you could do to redeem this guy, to have him ready to play this season, for the Vikings to not just make it to the playoffs, but possibly be able to save Kevin O'Connell's job if he truly is on a hot seat. And the reason why this quarterback battle always felt like a lie, it always felt like a facade, is that normally when you have a quarterback competition, you have it between two quarterbacks that are evenly matched. For example, Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. Deshaun and Shedeur, while both of those guys aren't really that good, there isn't really a lot of separation between the two. Michael Penix and Tua, I don't really think there's a lot of separation between the two. Hell, even Jacoby Brissett and Carson Beck, there's not really a lot of separation between the two. When you have a quarterback battle, it's normally a battle between two guys that are pretty much below average, barely starting caliber quarterbacks. You normally don't have a quarterback battle between a guy in Kyler Murray who has proven to be a solid, serviceable starter in this league versus a guy in J.J. McCarthy that has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league ever since he first got drafted. Kyler Murray, if you believe he's good or not, isn't really the question. The point is that Kyler Murray is 100 times better than J.J. McCarthy, and how long this quarterback battle took pretty much displayed that. If this was a quarterback battle between two evenly matched quarterbacks that were around the same talent range, this quarterback competition would have lingered in to late in the preseason. Instead, we haven't even played our first preseason game yet, and the Vikings are already comfortable with naming Kyler the starter. And I think that with Kyler, he was somewhat felt by Arizona more than people would like to admit. Hell, you guys already have seen some of the accusations that have came out against former Arizona Cardinals GM Steve Keim with his involvement in allegedly helping scam countless NFL players that have played for the Arizona Cardinals. That's the kind of environment that Kyler Murray was around when he was playing for the Cardinals, and you think that that was a franchise that was going to be able to get the best out of Kyler? I don't really think so. I look at the situation that Kyler's walking into with Minnesota this year. I see a defense coached by Brian Flores, so you know at the bare least it's going to be a top 10 defense. You got Justin Jefferson on one side, Jordan Addison on the other. You got TJ Hawkinson, who is still a very good tight end when he's healthy, and two very good running backs and one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. Kyler never really had this kind of supporting cast around him. He might have had some good receivers. Cliff is a solid play caller. He's had some solid running backs, but he never had a defense as legit as what he's going to have this year. And just the overall environment is less toxic and more conducive to Kyler having success than it was with the Arizona Cardinals. As they always love to say, sometimes you can be a product of your environment. How can a quarterback like Kyler Murray live up to his full potential being a former first overall pick when he's playing for a franchise that's one of the most poorly ran and one of the most dysfunctional in all of sports? Meanwhile, you look at how Sam Darnold resurrected his career. He became a lot better when he got away from the dumpster fire that is the New York Jets. When have the Jets last developed a halfway decent quarterback? It's been a very long damn time since they've done that. That's because those quarterbacks that they draft, same with the Browns, are a product of their environment. If you are a terribly ran organization, how can you possibly expect for a young quarterback to be able to develop in such a bad environment that isn't conducive to a quarterback being successful? Kevin O'Connell, him getting Kyler Murray, is pretty much the Vikings version of them getting Brock Purdy when they whiffed on drafting Trey Lance. The Minnesota Vikings don't have another year to try to wait and be patient and cross their fingers that they can land one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft. They need a guy that can come in and stabilize this franchise right away, and Kyler Murray provides them with the opportunity to do that. Kyler Murray was always going to be the obvious bet to be the Vikings starting quarterback. If Kevin O'Connell truly is on the hot seat this year, do you trust your job security in the hands of one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year for the sake of hoping that he can figure it out in J.J. McCarthy? Or do you trust your job security, your fate in the hands of a proven veteran quarterback that when he's been healthy consistently has given you 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions? I think we all know who the obvious answer would be to save Kevin O'Connell's job. The thing with why Kevin O'Connell was reluctant to come out and flat out admit that Kyler Murray was QB1 in spite of all of us knowing it is because of the timing. While Kevin O'Connell might have understood that J.J. McCarthy was a lost cause, some other higher-ranking members in the Vikings organization probably still wanted to see a little bit more evidence. So you had this quote-unquote fake quarterback competition manufactured so Kevin O'Connell pretty much could show everybody that was still in the J.J. McCarthy camp that, yeah, this thing is pretty much a wash. It's over. And also it gave Kyler Murray time to win over the locker room, get acclimated to his teammates, because you just can't hand Kyler Murray the job. He has to go and take it. And with him winning the starting job so early in the training camp, only a week and a half into it, he's announced the week 1 starter. I think that pretty much reaffirms what a lot of us who were non-J.J. McCarthy fans were operating with the assumption of, which was that J.J. McCarthy, they quickly have realized that they overdrafted him, and it's going to take a lot longer for him to even be a functional starting quarterback in this league. So it just makes sense to roll with the guy that gives you the best chance to win with a team that expects to win. Guys like Justin Jefferson, it's not their job to develop J.J. McCarthy. They don't have all their careers to waste on a guy who may figure it out or may not figure it out. What's next for J.J. McCarthy? He obviously is going to get traded. I think it most likely will be the Chargers. You pair him up with a head coach that actually wants him, that talked a lot of life into J.J. McCarthy and Jim Harbaugh. But I think this is another example of how every quarterback, just because they go into a good situation, doesn't definitively mean that they're going to be successful. Some guys just have what it takes to be good starters in this league at quarterback, and other guys just don't have it. And if you're one of those guys that don't have it, like J.J. McCarthy and Trey Lance, nobody can really develop you because you don't really have a lot of tools that can really be developed. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. Every quarterback in this league can't be developed, regardless of how good or how bad of a situation they may go to. I think Kyler Murray makes the Vikings a lock for the playoff this year, and I see him being this year's version of Sam Darnold. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications if you haven't already so you don't miss when we drop new content. Also, we are not just a YouTube channel. We are a podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. The links are down in the description below. Shout out to my guy, Young Losta. He says, yeah, you right for sure. Man, Lamar ain't about to do nothing this year. It's all about the Tiger and Joe Shiesty. He says every real football fan knew from the jump as soon as Kyler signed with them, it was his job to lose. That Kyler and J.J. connection has a chance to be something special. I agree with you, my guy, Young Loadster. And we're going to get into Lamar Jackson and him winning MV3 a little bit later on. But right now, we got to talk about the biggest sleeper team in the NFL going into this season. Once again, the Chicago Bears are the biggest sleeper team in the NFL going into this upcoming season. Now, you may be asking, JT, how the hell are the Chicago Bears the biggest sleeper team in the NFL when they won the division last year, won a playoff game, and won 11 games and showed a lot of promise. How can they be a sleeper when they were already a sleeper last year? Well, that's because people didn't learn their lesson the first time when they were sleeping on Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears last year. And I guess they need to be taught another lesson by Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears this year, because people are sleeping on the Chicago Bears this year from the standpoint of they're picking this team to be the prime regression team. Every season you have a team that comes off a fantastic year that always regresses, and the Chicago Bears are expected to be that team, and that's why they're the biggest sleeper team in the NFL coming into this season, because I don't expect for the Chicago Bears to regress. Sure, they won a lot of close games that they had to come from behind in the fourth quarter to win. They called them the Cardiac Bears for a reason. But sometimes when you have a new head coach and a young quarterback, ugly wins and year one can be mistaken for a fraudulent team. I don't necessarily think that's the case for the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, sure, they won a lot of ugly, chaotic games. They had a lot of miracles in the fourth quarter, but they always say it's a 60-minute game for a reason. There's a reason why they play 4 quarters. And you can't punish the Chicago Bears for the way that they won last year, given that was their first year under Ben Johnson, and that was their best season in 16 years. And I felt with the situation that Ben Johnson was taking over, sure, you had a talented roster that was good enough to make it to the playoffs in his first season, but you still had a young quarterback that was developing, and a quarterback that was coming off a very disappointing rookie season for what the expectations were. And early during last season, things started off a little bit slow with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, but as the season progressed on, you saw Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson get a better understanding of each other. Ben Johnson did a better job of building the offense around Caleb Williams as he started to figure out better ways to utilize his unique skill set. And I think coming into this season, you're going to see a Chicago Bears team that is going to win a lot cleaner than what they did last year, because last year they were just trying to win any way they possibly could. You aren't going to complain about results that you get your first season as a head coach if you're Ben Johnson coaching an organization that hasn't really been that good over the last couple of decades. So I think for Ben Johnson, you can't really be that picky about how you won in year one. Year one was just all about showing progress, giving Chicago Bears fans legitimate hope for the future, and that's what they did. This year is all about building off the success that you had in year one, and the way that you go about doing that is, for one, Ben Johnson is going to make Caleb Williams a more complete quarterback than what he was last season, which is going to lead to Chicago being in less games that they have to come back down from behind a lot of points in the fourth quarter, because with Caleb Williams becoming more accurate and more efficient in his decision-making and his processing of defenses, the Chicago Bears are going to get out to more fast starts instead of slow starts. And also, Caleb Williams is not a finished product. When you have a young quarterback that's in development, especially with a new head coach in his second season, last year essentially was Caleb Williams' rookie season. When you have to deal with another head coaching change in your second season, you pretty much have to reset everything that you learned beforehand. So year two, under Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams should be more accurate. He should have better timing. He shouldn't be missing as many easy throws to wide open guys as what he was last season. And with a better understanding of Ben Johnson's system, we should see Caleb Williams elevate his game a lot more than what he did last year, to possibly a level of, we're discussing middle of the season, Caleb Williams being a potential front runner to win MVP, because he was hyped up to be the second coming of Patrick Mahomes, and we saw a lot of that and a lot of those fourth quarter comebacks that Caleb Williams engineered, especially that incredible throw that he made in that playoff loss to the LA Rams to send that thing to overtime. And I also think that Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, with the improvement and growth that these two are going to make with each other, they make the Chicago Bears the front runners to be the kings of the NFC North for not just this upcoming season, but in the foreseeable future. Sure, the Bears have flaws. Their offensive line has some questions. Their defense has a lot of questions, but they're in a division with a bunch of other flawed teams. The Minnesota Vikings, sure, they got a great defense. They have some weapons around Kyler, but in spite of Kyler being an upgrade from Kyler Murray, in spite of Kyler Murray being an upgrade from J.J. McCarthy, there is a certain ceiling that the Minnesota Vikings have with him underneath center. With the Detroit Lions, they may have the best roster, but their defense still has a lot of question marks. And we saw how that offense dropped off last year with the departure of Ben Johnson. And the Green Bay Packers, I think, are going to end up missing the playoffs because of the loss of Jeff Hafley. Their defense is going to drop off tremendously. And they're also going to be without Michael Parsons for the first half of this season coming up. The Chicago Bears have probably the most talented quarterback and the best head coach in the NFC North. When you have a head coach with the offensive mind that Ben Johnson has, you normally don't see regression. Sure, the way that the Bears won a lot of games in Ben Johnson's first year normally makes them a prime regression candidate, but you're not including the possible improvement that we're going to see out of Caleb Williams his second season under Ben Johnson. And with the growth that Caleb Williams is going to make, with Ben Johnson having a better understanding of what works and what doesn't work, I think that also gives the Chicago Bears a higher floor than what they've had in seasons prior. And I just think that Caleb Williams has already shown that he's ascending towards being everything that he was advertised to be when he was the first overall pick, being the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. And Ben Johnson is the reincarnation of Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, just a lot younger. So when you have the head coach quarterback duo that the Chicago Bears have, not only does it provide them with a solid floor to avoid regression this season, but it also provides them with just as high, if not a higher ceiling than what they had last year, with the defense possibly improving, because Dennis Allen is a very good defensive coordinator, and I don't expect that defense to be as flawed this season as what it was last year, entering Dennis Allen's second year as Chicago's defensive coordinator. And I think it's so easy to assume that with the way the Bears won last year, that they're going to regress, instead of possibly thinking that, maybe last year was just the best version of what last year's Chicago Bears team was, and that this year's version of the Chicago Bears is going to be a lot better because Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are going to improve a lot more than what they were last season around this same time. So I got the Chicago Bears winning the NFC North once again, making it back to the playoffs, and they were not regressed to the mean where they go from being a playoff team to outside of the playoffs this season coming up. I got to talk about another big sleeper team, even though I don't really know if you can still consider this team a sleeper. The New Orleans Saints, you can no longer call this a sleeper team anymore, since nobody's sleeping on the New Orleans Saints. There are a lot of people that are picking the Saints to win the NFC South and possibly do it by a pretty big margin. I've seen a lot of rec predictions have the Saints winning 11, 12 games, and the second place finisher in this division winning 9 or 8 games. And there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about how good the Saints possibly could be this year. There are still a good contingent out there that don't understand what's up with all this hype with the Saints, which is why I'm making this segment to begin with, because I got into it with a homie a few nights ago when I told him that picking the Bears to lose to the Panthers was a bad bet to make, because you're banking on the Carolina Panthers being the underdog team that they were last year, with all the injuries they've had so far to start training camp, I don't know if they're going to be as good as what they should be coming off the season that they had last year. And with how weak the NFC South has been over these last couple of years, and with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers starting to get worse, no longer having that huge talent edge as what they once did the last couple of years, with them transitioning from being a veteran-led team to being a younger team with the departure of Mike Evans in free agency, the retirement of Levante David, and then you possibly shipping off one of your key cornerstones of your defense in Vita Vea. So with the Buccaneers getting a lot younger and the roster not being as experienced, as talented as what it has been in years past, I don't really see the Buccaneers being a factor in the NFC South this year as long as Todd Bowles remains the head coach. I think the division really comes down to the Saints or the Panthers, and for the majority of this offseason, I was leaning the Carolina Panthers, but I recently had a change of heart a few nights ago because you just look at everything that the Saints have added this offseason. They quietly have assembled one of the NFL's most explosive offenses, mainly looking at how their wide receiving core looks at the moment. We know how good Chris Olave is when he's on the field. He's a dog. He's one of the best big play receivers in the league. But they also drafted Jordan Tyson in the top 10 of this past year's draft. And when he's healthy, he's instantly going to be one of the best wide receivers in the game. This guy has bunnies like it's nobody's business. He has incredible acceleration. The guy just is an incredible bouncy wide receiver that I expect to be extremely productive instantly for New Orleans. But what about Bryce Lance, Trey Lance's younger brother? He's not too far off from being the type of player that Jordan Tyson is. They have a similar skill set. And what I like about both Jordan Tyson and Bryce Lance is that not only are these guys incredibly explosive, but they have great length. These guys can go up and win 50-50 balls downfield. They can be good red zone options as well. And let's talk about the addition of Travis Etienne in free agency, who I felt was underutilized his last few years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sure, he had some really good seasons, but he can be more effective in the passing game than what he was for Jacksonville. Jacksonville never really used Travis Etienne like how he could have been used to his full capability, because at Clemson, he was a very underrated pass catcher. Not just a guy who was only good catching balls out of the backfield, no diddy, but he also could line up and play a little bit of slot receiver. So could we see Kellen Moore lean into using Travis Etienne a little bit more as receiver, lining him out wide to get him matched up against safeties, linebackers in coverage? Overall, it's not more so I'm picking the Saints to win the NFC South solely because I believe in Tyler Shuck. It's more so I'm picking the Saints to win the division this year because I believe in the infrastructure that the Saints have surrounded Tyler Shuck with. You got great receivers that can play above the rim, that can go get it. Tyler Shuck has a very good arm. He loves to push that thing downfield. And Kellen Moore is a very good offensive mind. He isn't Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, or Ben Johnson, but everywhere that Kellen Moore has called plays, his offenses have been well respected, pretty respectable. And I think that with Tyler Shuck, you have a higher floor with him than what you do with Bryce Young. More so, if Bryce Young and Trey Lance play their worst, who has the better performance of the two? I gotta go with Tyler Shuck, because while we haven't seen a lot of what Tyler Shuck's floor is, I don't think his floor is finishing under 100 passing yards in a game like we've seen Bryce Young do several times last season. Cam Ward had 200 yards passing against the Seahawks defense on a team that was worse than the Panthers, and he was also a rookie. Meanwhile, Bryce Young couldn't even get more than 60 yards passing against Seattle. You know, when Bryce Young is playing his best football, he's a winning quarterback. But when Bryce Young is playing his worst, he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. And the biggest issue that I have with the Panthers and why I can't trust them to win the NFC South over the Saints is that I think Bryce Young is just too inconsistent right now. He's too volatile. 1 week, he's balling out against the Falcons and the Saints, or the Falcons and the Rams, and then the next week, he's struggling to even have above 100 passing yards. So with that level of volatility, I just can't say that I can have a lot of confidence in your team's ability to win the division, especially with two of your starting offensive tackles going to be missing time for at least the first part of the season. And a guy that's undersized like Bryce Young, he needs his offensive line to be fully healthy. He's not a guy that can be able to overcome limitations because he already has to overcome his own limitations being one of the smallest quarterbacks in NFL history. The Saints have built a more trustworthy team than what the Panthers have around their quarterback, because Bryce Young's highs may be better than Tyler Shuck's highs, but Tyler Shuck's lows are better than what Bryce Young's lows are probably going to be, and that's why I trust the New Orleans Saints more. And with the injuries that the Panthers have suffered early to start training camp, it just further makes it a lot more safer for me to trust the Saints to win this division than it does the Carolina Panthers. I feel the way the NFC South is right now is kind of a revolving door. 1 year, the Panthers win it. The next year, the New Orleans Saints might win it. The next season, who knows? Maybe the Atlanta Falcons might win that thing. I just don't think that you have a lot of franchises that right now have built that sustainable foundation yet to believe that, okay, I know even at their worst, this team's floor is a 9-win team. I don't really know if I can say that about the Carolina Panthers, because their floor could easily be 6 or 7 wins and you regress if Bryce Young doesn't take that next step. I'm not saying that the Saints are this perfect team. They obviously have flaws. Obviously, the Panthers and the Falcons, I believe, have a much better defense than what New Orleans does due to the strength of their secondary, especially with what the Carolina Panthers added at linebacker and Devin Lloyd and adding Jalen Phillips coming off the edge. But at the same time, though, the Saints defense has a few players. You got Kool-Aid, you got Chase Young. We all talk about Sam Darnold's redemption arc. Nobody's talking about Chase Young's redemption arc. This guy was a former top 3, top 5 pick in the draft years ago, had a devastating injury that derailed his career, and we thought this brother's career was over. We thought Chase Young was just going to be another Jag. He was just going to be just another guy, and all of a sudden, he has his first double-digit sack season of his career in New Orleans. You keep talking about Sam Darnold's redemption arc. Talk about Chase Young's redemption arc, because if this brother can build off last season and he ends up being the monster that he first was when he first came into the league, the Saints are going to be a problem this year. Overall, I'm not saying that the Panthers don't have a chance, because they do, and I'm still, on the fence. I'm more 60-40 than I am 50-50. It's just, I don't see how you can't trust the Saints just with the injuries the Panthers have, the volatility we saw from Bryce Young, and Tyler Shuck still has a lot to prove, but I trust his foundation a lot more than I trust the foundation of Bryce Young. If Tyler Shuck and Bryce Young play their worst football, who would be the better of the two quarterbacks? I gotta go with Tyler Shuck, because I just think you have more consistency and more so knowing what Tyler Shuck is going to be on a week-to-week basis compared to Bryce Young, where you really don't know. He could be balling out, or he could be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league at any given week, any given moment. So I got to go with the team that has the more consistent foundation around their quarterback to be successful, and that's New Orleans. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you live, eat, breathe, sleep, and die football, we're talking all things football 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. Follow us at JT Sports _ is where you can find us on Instagram, X, and TikTok, along with our Facebook page. If you have any questions, any topics that you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs or at us, and we will get to it on a future episode. Join our Discord, man. We want to talk football with you. We just don't want to talk football with you when we got the live streams going late night. We want to talk football with you every day, all day. Go ahead, join the JT Sports Discord server, man. The link is in the description below. We want to talk football with you, man. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. Shout out to my guy, Sean Ackridge. He says, what's up, JT? It's been a long time. Shout out to one of the OG subscribers, man. Sean Ackridge has been rocking with us for at least 8-9 years now. This man has literally seen us grow up from a boy to a young man. It's wild. He says Dennis Allen did my boy Jameis dirty, man. Yeah, they did. Hey, I heard that boy Jameis been doing this thing at New York Giants training camp. Why Jameis Winston is still a backup quarterback is beyond me, but Jameis Winston is one of the best treasures in NFL history. He's my favorite football player of all time. Don't have enough time to explain to you guys the lore and the backstory behind it, but the first jersey I ever got was from a teacher of mine's that happened to be a Tampa Bay fan, and we made a bet, and he said, I won't get you a Miami jersey or a Steelers jersey, but I'll get you a Buccaneers jersey of a player of your choosing. And I told him, okay, I need a Jameis Winston jersey. I rock with that boy Jameis, and he blessed me with a Jameis Winston jersey. I still got it to this day, the first jersey I've ever gotten, and that's what made me a diehard fan of Jameis Winston. But we got to continue on, man. We have bad news for the entire NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs have finally got their fastball back. What do you mean by the Chiefs finally got their fastball back? At their beginning stages of the Mahomes, Andy Reid Chiefs dynasty, when they had Tyreek Hill and they had prime Travis Kelce, they were the most explosive offense in the league. They could pull out explosive plays in the vertical passing game out their ass like it was nobody's business. But after Kansas City traded away Tyreek Hill to Miami, you started to see their explosiveness diminish season by season. And last year was the least explosive that the Chiefs offense has ever been since Patrick Mahomes took over for Alex Smith as their starting quarterback. Which is why they brought back Eric Bieniemy, because when this offense was at their best, Eric Bieniemy had a huge say in the game planning, the play calling. Oftentimes, him and Andy Reid would swap play calling duties. And also, they had a lot of speed at receiver. Early in training camp, there's been a lot of great reports about two receivers who I think are going to have a huge impact on Kansas City's offense, getting back to what they used to be able to do a few years ago with Tyreek Hill, being able to generate all these big chunk plays in the deep passing game. And the two wide receivers that are standing out at training camp so far for Kansas City are Tyquan Thornton and rookie fifth-round wideout Cyrus Allen. And I think that with these two guys going off so far, it gives the Chiefs a lot more confidence that they cannot just get that run game going, but when they do get it going with Kenneth Walker, they can generate these big explosive plays in the passing game once again with that play action pass. And when you have Tyquan Thornton in the mix, listen, I don't think Tyquan Thornton is just some feel-good, run-of-the-mill, regular smeggler training camp. We're just trying to hype up some random guy training camp story. Oftentimes, you have a lot of guys like Tyquan Thornton that flashed a little bit during the previous season, and they end up becoming a fan favorite throughout camp, and then the regular season rolls around, and they're pretty much a non-factor. I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think Tyquan Thornton, the few plays that he was in for Kansas City in last year, he made the most of them. He had a lot of big plays, a lot of big catches that were like 30, 40 yards. He actually led the team in catches for 25 yards or more last year. And I expect him to have a bigger role in this offense with Kansas City bringing him back during the offseason. Not only is Tyquan Thornton a training camp standout out receiver for Kansas City, but they also have another wideout that's been standing out a lot and has quickly earned the trust of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and fifth-round rookie wideout Cyrus Allen. Now, Cyrus Allen isn't getting your normal run-of-the-mill, we're just trying to hype up a day 3 draft pick because everybody's a fan of an underdog story. Everybody loves to root for an underdog player to not just make the roster, but have a significant impact on the team's success in their rookie year. Cyrus Allen is actually going to have a legitimate role in this Chiefs offense. If you play fantasy football, you need to go ahead and draft Cyrus Allen. Fifth-round rookies normally don't receive this kind of buzz or attention this early in the training camp. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes already trust this guy so much that he's getting a good amount of first-team work in camp. And we don't really know what his verified speed is. There's a lot of conflicting reports. Some people say his game speed is high 4.2, low 4.3. Some say he's a mid 4.4 guy. We truly don't know, but the speed he possesses has already shown up throughout training camp, and it's something that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes want to see more of as far as his involvement in this offense. And I think that once the regular season rolls around, don't be shocked if you see Cyrus Allen becoming a focal point of this offense despite being a fifth-round draft pick. Because one thing about Kansas City, if you can play, they don't care where they draft you at. If you're out playing a first-round pick, they'll start you over the first-round pick. If you are an undrafted free agent out playing a fifth-round pick, they'll start you. So one thing about Kansas City, they don't play politics. They don't play favorites. If you're a guy that already is earning the trust of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes as a fifth-round pick, that gives me legitimate reasons to believe that you're going to have a huge impact on this offense. And with the speed that Cyrus Allen and Tyquan Thornton have mixed in with what we know Xavier Worthy can do when he's fully healthy, the speed that he brings to your offense, Kansas City now has 3 speedsters that can kill you downfield once they get behind your secondary. And that's what makes the signing of Kenneth Walker in free agency all the more important, because this was always the plan for Kansas City. This was always the vision for this year's offense. You use Kenneth Walker to get the ground game going. Then when you get those linebackers cheating up against the run, then that's when you hit them with those big explosive shot plays with the play action pass game. The thing that Eric Bieniemy brings back to Kansas City's offense is unpredictability. Kansas City was never more predictable last year offensively than what they've ever been under Andy Reid last season. I just think that Andy Reid's play calling has gotten a little bit stale. He's gotten too overly reliant on the dink and dunk offense, and defenses have caught on to it, which is why now Kansas City, bringing back Eric Bieniemy, signing Kenneth Walker is all about getting your fastball back. And Kansas City's fastball was their ability to generate a lot of explosive plays in the deep passing game. With the speed that they have at wide receiver this year, with Xavier Worthy, Cyrus Allen, and Tyquan Thornton, I expect for this Chiefs offense to look a lot similar to the offense that we first saw in the first stage of the Mahomes, Andy Reid Chiefs dynasty when they had Tyreek Hill. Now, I'm not saying these guys are going to become Tyreek Hill, but you can see this offense rip off a lot more explosive plays and chunks a lot more consistently than what they have over the last 2-3 years. And that's why you listen to these training camp reports about the Chiefs receivers, about how much trust that you've already seen Cyrus Allen, this 5th-round pick at wide receiver out of Cincinnati, build up with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like the Chiefs finally got their fastball back. And I've been telling you guys all offseason that the Chiefs are going to be back in the AFC Championship. They've been in the AFC Championship for 9 out of the last 10 years of my existence on this planet. And listen, I have to see it to believe it that Kansas City truly is no longer what they have been over the last couple of years, dominating the AFC, dominating the NFL. I have to see the Chiefs not make it to the AFC Championship for the 2nd straight season in a row to truly believe that, okay, it's not over officially, but it's on a little bit of a hiatus. But I don't really think they're going to be on a hiatus for too much longer. I think last year was a reset year, and I think this year the Chiefs are going to be back doing what we've been growing accustomed to seeing this team do over the last decade, running the AFC. Every time people think that Lamar Jackson has reached his peak he finds another way to evolve. When you think that there's no way Lamar Jackson can get any better than what he was the first time he won MVP, when he ran for 1,200 yards and led the NFL in passing touchdowns with 36, you end up seeing this guy in his second MVP run become more efficient, to where now the difference in the evolution of Lamar from what he was when he first came into the league to what he's going to be this year under new offensive coordinator Declan Doyle is that when Lamar first came into the NFL, you just viewed him as a great athlete. You just viewed him as a dynamic quarterback talent that is a more polished passer than what we've grown accustomed to seeing most quarterbacks with Lamar Jackson's athleticism have. Now, with Lamar Jackson in his second MVP run with Todd Monken, you saw a quarterback that was a lot more polished as a passer. Not just has Lamar Jackson improved his accuracy tremendously, but Lamar Jackson is a very underrated thrower of the ball from within the pocket. He has very good pocket presence. He has a good feel for pressure that comes inside the pocket, even if he can't see it. And just the way that he maneuvers inside and out of the pocket are the improvements that at one point when Lamar first won his first MVP award, you didn't really think he would ever be able to reach that level as a passer. Now he has. Now entering his 9th season with his third offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle, you're going to see Declan Doyle put together the last few phases of Lamar Jackson's evolution, and he's further going to evolve into an even better quarterback than what he has been these past 8 years of his career, because now Lamar Jackson is going to evolve from being one of the greatest dual threat quarterbacks ever to no longer being able to be mentioned in the same conversation as Michael Vick and Cam Newton, because he has completely evolved to a different tier of quarterbacks, to where I think we can now call Lamar Jackson Aaron Rodgers on crack. Aaron Rodgers is the best pure thrower of the football in NFL history. I think that Lamar Jackson is second. He has great touch. He's very accurate inside the numbers. And if you gave Aaron Rodgers Lamar Jackson's athleticism in his prime, you essentially would have what Lamar Jackson currently is. I think that it's disrespectful to put Lamar Jackson in the same tier of quarterbacks as a Cam Newton and a Michael Vick, because he has far surpassed those guys as his evolution of as a quarterback. Lamar is no longer a quarterback that really has to rely on his athleticism to beat you. This guy, 2 years ago, we forget, got snubbed for MV3 when he threw 41 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions in favor of Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson has been breaking ceilings that people have put on him his entire career, and he's about to break another ceiling this upcoming season when he wins his 3rd MVP award. And the reason why Lamar is going to win his 3rd MVP this year is because if you are a diehard Lamar fan, you will follow this trend. Every time Lamar Jackson has gotten a new offensive coordinator, he has won MVP his first season under them. When he won his first MVP, it was his first season under Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator. When he won his second MVP, he did it his first year under Todd Monken being his offensive coordinator. Now you have Declan Doyle coming in, who's running a hybrid of a Sean Payton, Ben Johnson kind of offense that's all about pre-snap motion, confusing the defense, having an answer for every counter that the defense throws at you. Lamar Jackson in this system is going to evolve to being the undisputed pound-for-pound most talented quarterback in NFL history, because what Declan Doyle's system is going to ask of Lamar is for him to beat you not just with his legs and his arm, but to beat you with his brain. Because now Lamar Jackson is going to have more control at the line of scrimmage, being able to audible out of plays, being able to have a counter for what the formation or the alignment of the defense is in front of him. And I think when you couple that freedom that Lamar Jackson is going to have at the line of scrimmage with all the creativity that Declan Doyle's offense is going to have, every offensive coordinator that Lamar Jackson has had when he's won MVP, Greg Roman, Todd Monken, have all unlocked a different element of Lamar Jackson's game. Greg Roman showed everybody how elite of an athlete Lamar Jackson is. He pretty much showed everybody that Lamar Jackson is the greatest athlete that the quarterback position has ever seen in the NFL. Todd Monken, when he helped Lamar Jackson win his second MVP, what he unlocked was the efficiency throwing the football that was always questioned about Lamar Jackson when he was coming out of Louisville, to where now you have Todd Monken, who helped Lamar Jackson elevate his game from just being a great athlete to all of a sudden being this true all-around transcendent level quarterback, to where he now is like Aaron Rodgers on the super soldier serum. If you gave Aaron Rodgers Lamar's athleticism, that's pretty much what he would be. He would be the vanilla version of Lamar Jackson. And for those who still try to diminish Lamar Jackson's ability to throw the football, once again, 2 years ago, 2024, when he got snubbed for MV3, he had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That is Aaron Rodgers' level of efficiency. When Aaron Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs his final years in Green Bay, he was posting those same kind of numbers that you saw Lamar Jackson put up 2 years ago in 2024. This year is all about Declan Doyle's system turning Lamar Jackson into the puppet master. The pre-snap motion is going to give you cleaner defensive tells. It's going to give you a better tell of, okay, they're running zone, they're running man. Cool, we need to change into this. Kill, let's go into this, because this best takes advantage of cover 3, cover 2 zone, and vice versa. Same thing for man coverage. If you're coming out in man, cover 0 especially, Lamar Jackson thinks to Declan Doyle saying, okay, we got adjustments for that. We got counters for that. And the thing that's the most annoying when we talk about Lamar Jackson is this constant goalpost moving. First it was he can't throw. All of a sudden, now it's he's regressing because last year he posted career lows in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, because he was playing through an injury. But leave it to Colin Cowherd, though, to spin this narrative that Lamar Jackson is a diminishing asset, and if you don't sell your Lamar Jackson stock now, you're going to go bankrupt. Listen, Colin, I'm not buying into your nonsense about Lamar Jackson's regression. You are trying to judge Lamar Jackson through this short-sighted lens of last season when he obviously wasn't fully healthy. Just because you're 30 years old doesn't mean you go from running a 4.2, 4.3 to running a 4.9. Tyreek Hill, when he gets fully recovered from his injury, sure, he won't be as fast as what he once was, but he's not going to go from being the fastest player in NFL history to running a 4.32 like Tom Brady. That just doesn't happen. You just don't lose all your athleticism that quick. It's not like Lamar Jackson, as soon as he wakes up at the age of 30, is all of a sudden going to turn into Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as far as his mobility goes. Lamar is still the most dynamic quarterback in the league. He still is the most athletically gifted quarterback that the NFL has ever seen. And Colin Cowherd is easily going to be right back on the Lamar Jackson bandwagon when we get to the middle of the season and you see Lamar Jackson posting these MVP numbers under Declan Doyle, because every time Lamar Jackson has entered year one under a new offensive coordinator, he has won MVP, and I expect that trend to continue with what the Ravens have surrounded Lamar Jackson with. I don't think the Ravens have ever been as deep at wide receiver as what they currently are going into this year. They've improved the interior of the offensive line. We still got King Henry back there at running back. So not only do you have to deal with the threat of Lamar, but you got to deal with the threat of everybody else surrounding Lamar Jackson. Lamar is not regressing. What the Ravens have done is rebooted Lamar Jackson. Every time they reboot Lamar Jackson with a new offensive coordinator, he always wins MVP. He did it year one when he had Greg Roman. He did it year one when he had Todd Monken. And he's going to do it once again year one under Declan Doyle. Lamar Jackson is coming for MV3. He should have won it 2 years ago. He's not going to be denied of it this season coming up. I believe that the Chargers are going to have the NFL's most improved offense this season. Last year, their offense was barely above average, pretty much slightly average, if you want to be honest about it. Run that back, cut that out. This is for the post-production people if you're listening to this live. I believe the Chargers are going to have the NFL's most improved offense this season. Last year, their offense was pretty much average. And when they had all the injuries occur early during the season to their offensive line, it pretty much was Justin Herbert carry this offense on your shoulders. With Greg Roman not being able to get the run game going, having to lean into what his biggest limitation is as an offensive coordinator, his lack of innovation when it comes to developing good passing concepts. The Chargers offense completely fell off the cliff, and their biggest limitations got exposed in the worst way possible when they went one and done in the playoffs once again, this time losing to the New England Patriots. So what Jim Harbaugh did is he said, you know what? We're not going to triple down on something that obviously isn't working. We're going to make a change, and we're going to hire one of the NFL's most innovative offensive minds, and Mike McDaniel, to be our offensive coordinator. And with the hiring of Mike McDaniel, the Chargers are going to go from being a slightly below average offense to having one of the 5 best offenses in the NFL this season. The mistake that a lot of NFL casuals make when they judge the LA Chargers and how good they could possibly be, how good the roster is that they make the mistake of thinking that Jim Harbaugh can't win without elite wide receivers, elite skill talent, when Jim Harbaugh has been winning without elite perimeter talent for the entirety of his head coaching career, especially in the NFL. The last time he went to the Super Bowl with the 49ers, his 2 best weapons were Michael Crabtree and Vernon Davis. With Mike McDaniel taking over as the Chargers' new offensive coordinator, this is a guy that schemes guys open. A guy like McConkey may not be that great in the average NFL fan's eyes, but you put him in a Mike McDaniel system, which is predicated off spacing and leverage and scheming guys open. McConkey is going to put up some serious numbers in this offense. Quinn Johnston could put up numbers in this offense. Mike McDaniel's offense is built to elevate the players that are plugged in it, which is why coordinators are so important when it comes to determining how good a team's going to be and how far they can go in the postseason. I look at coordinators or head coaches that call plays like chess players. The better the play caller, the better they can position their pawns to win the game. Look at what Mike McDaniel was able to do his first few years with the Miami Dolphins. Despite the Miami Dolphins being flawed on the offensive line, Tua having obvious physical limitations, Mike McDaniel was still able to produce some of the NFL's premier offenses his first couple of years in Miami. His second year with the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa led the NFL in passing yards per game, and the Dolphins were one of the top scoring offenses in the league that season. You give Mike McDaniel a better offensive line, a way better quarterback talent to work with, he's going to produce phenomenal numbers for this Chargers offense. You're going to have a guy that can finally get the most out of Justin Herbert. And a lot of Chargers fans ask, how much better is Mike McDaniel going to make Justin Herbert when Justin Herbert pretty much is maxing out as a quarterback? How much better can he get? Justin Herbert has never thrown 40 touchdowns in a season. That could happen this year with Mike McDaniel calling the shots on offense. Mike McDaniel is also going to get a lot more out of the ground game than what Greg Roman did last year. Normally, Greg Roman's MO is maximizing the run game. There's 3 things that are guaranteed in this life: death, taxes, and Greg Roman producing a top 10, top 5 rushing attack. Literally 80% of Greg Roman's time calling plays, he has produced a top 10 or top 5 rushing attack. Last year was one of the first times in his entire coaching career that the ground game was not effective. With Mike McDaniel running a lot of outside zone, with Omarion Hampton, Keaton Mitchell at running back, this ground game is going to be just as explosive as what the pass game is going to be, which is going to make the Chargers more versatile and not one-dimensional like how they were last year. We talk about how bad the offensive line was, but you don't do your offensive line any favors when you can't establish the ground game and you can't play complementary football, because then you allow those pass rushers to pin their ears back and just go all out on getting after the quarterback, because they don't have to worry about the threat of your ability to run the football. So with everything that Mike McDaniel specializes in, scheming guys open, getting more out of the rushing attack, producing more explosive plays, running the ball, and throwing the football, I don't see how the Chargers don't finish with, at the bare minimum, a top 5 offense. And I truly believe that the Chargers' best opportunity to win a Super Bowl is with Mike McDaniel being their offensive coordinator. Because when you have a guy like Mike McDaniel that just has such an elite offensive mind, he's not going to be around forever. If he ends up being as good as advertised, he will most definitely be a head coach around this same time next year, because guys with his elite understanding of offense and how his scheme just elevates every player that you plug into it, a guy like this is too good to be stuck as an offensive coordinator. So if the Chargers don't win a Super Bowl with Mike McDaniel on the staff as an offensive coordinator, they will never win a Super Bowl as long as Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh are around post Mike McDaniel, because you don't run into guys like Mike McDaniel that you can scoop up and utilize very often for a limited amount of time. Mike McDaniel, I view, is the equivalent to a limited edition item. You know how you go to McDonald's and Burger King, they be like, get this spicy honey mustard barbecue chicken wrap while it's available for a limited time. You pass on it and then you say, you know what, I'm going to go get that thing 2 weeks later and it's no longer on the menu. That's Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel to the LA Chargers is a limited edition item. You got to get the most out of him while you have him, because when you lose him, you won't have the same Super Bowl window as what you currently do right now. And that's not to crap on Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. That's just me paying the ultimate respect to one of the best offensive minds in the NFL right now. Normally, a guy like Mike McDaniel, he ends up doing what he's supposed to, and he ends up getting a better head coaching opportunity later on. I could easily see him being the next head coach of possibly maybe the Bengals if they underachieve again. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be a phenomenal fit. There's a lot of good jobs that are going to come available for Mike McDaniel if he ends up being as good as what I expect him to be this year. And I think the Chargers this season, their offense is going to be very legit. And I think is why they're one of the biggest sleeper teams in the league coming into this season as far as what their ceiling could be this year. The Chargers could be a team that comes out of nowhere, makes it to the AFC Championship game. Or they could end up winning that thing, and maybe they end up upsetting the Rams in the Super Bowl. Who knows? But with Mike McDaniel being the Chargers offensive coordinator this year, I expect for this offense to produce some godly numbers offensively. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a 5-star review. You can find this episode along with all of our previous ones in audio format on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Join our Discord. We want to talk football with you. We just don't want to wait till we go live to talk football with you for an hour. We want to talk football with you as much as your heart desires. go ahead, join the JT Sports Discord. The link is down in the description below. And last but not least, go ahead, follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook. You'll find us at JT Sports _. Look for the one that has the legit logo. There's a lot of imitators out there. I don't know why people are trying to jack JT Sports, but it's a lot of people in Afghanistan, India, Indonesia that are trying to jack JT Sports, and I am about to get that thing trademarked. So, you know, if you're getting a little bit mixed up about which one is the real JT Sports, look for the one that looks the most legit, that has the most professional looking logo. That's the JT Sports you should be following. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I don't know if I'm going to be live tomorrow because I have a freelance job that I have to finish up. But if I do, I will be back on. If I don't, I will drop an episode of 4 Downs. So I will see you guys shortly.